Hello and welcome to episode 60. 60?
Yep, another
of
milestone,
an
mate.
Earful podcast. I'm your host, Matt Love, and as always, I am joined by the one, the only, Man United Matt himself, my Ashton.
Using my MSN Addy there, mate. It's going back, that. Old school.
They were the good days. They were the simple days. But today, we are speaking to Charlie from As Everything Unfolds.
Yeah, so on this podcast, we go on about touring post-lockdown. We talk about them playing the download pilot as well. Just playing download for the first time and how much of a crazy experience that was for them. We go on about the making of the music video for On the Inside, because it's just a fucking smashing music video and we just needed to bring that up. And obviously, as usual, we dive into horror movies, get into our segments of what's your favourite scary movie and pet peeves as well. Which
Pet peeves is pretty good on this one.
Yeah.
I'm ranking it in like the top tier of good pet peeves.
Right.
So make sure you stick around for it because it is a jolly good time. See my festive mentions now that we're in December. Oh God. Anyway, if you haven't already, thank you very much for anyone that has been following us, checking out episodes. You may have noticed that we've taken a bit of a break since HorrorFest because HorrorFest, as every year that we have done it, it completely burns us out. So we just have to take some sort of time to kind of recuperate, get ourselves in the mood again, and just get going. But if you want to keep in touch with what we are up to, what episodes are coming out, then make sure to check us out on our socials, which is at an Earful podcast on Instagram, Facebook. Don't really use the Facebook that much, but it's there anyway. There you go. And Twitter as well. If you haven't already as well, if you do like our episodes, make sure you go and follow it. Or if you do like the episode, comment, let us know. We like to know that you like the content that we're releasing, or if you've got any suggestions of who we should have on the podcast. But other than that, it's Charlie from As Everything Unfolds.
Enjoy.
All right, so Charlie, how is it going?
It's been good. Been quite busy actually for a change. It's nice to be able to tell people we've been busy, because obviously over the last year we've been not busy. Well, busy internally, but not really touring or playing shows or anything. So yeah, we've been on a tour with Holding Absence. We played the download pilot in the summer. We're due to go to Germany in January, so obviously all fingers crossed for that, touch wood. And then back out with Holding Absence in March, and we got loads going on. We played some festivals like Burn It Down and Turbulence in between. We've got a show with Raptors at the end of December in Bristol, so that'll be pretty good. So yeah, it's great. It's going really well, and our vinyl is finally being released, I think next week or the week after. So that's everything's been a long time coming. It's all finally coming together at the end of the year, which is really nice.
That's sick. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there, so we'll break it down a bit.
I mean, you guys.
I think I'm just excited that we've actually got stuff to talk about.
You guys have gone into lockdown and then come out of lockdown and just like fucking blew up. Like you've done download pilot, you released your album, you've been on tour with Holding Absence, and now you just like, it looks like you're just non-stop now, constantly, which is brilliant to see.
Yeah, it was such a weird time because obviously this is our first album as well. So in a weird way, we don't really know any different from what's just happened, and I think that's kind of been a blessing for us. You know, we've thrived in some ways in the pandemic online, because a lot of bands chose not to release their material, whereas we kind of took the gamble. And I think in terms of collecting fans online, that really paid off. But obviously we then did sacrifice potentially doing like an album release tour, but we're doing an album sort of release, album end show, I suppose, in February. So that's kind of what's going on with the album stuff.
That's cool. Now, I think first I've got to commend you because we watched you in Manchester on the Holding Absence tour, and your set was so slick. It was just
thank you.
The entire thing was just like from one song to the next with interludes and all that. Like, it's weird that in some cases it's quite rare to find like bands where they've absolutely nailed the whole transition between songs.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a certain like thought you put into whereabouts you compiled like certain songs? Obviously, there's the ones where you've added a single where you mainly put them like at the end of the set list, but otherwise than that, in terms of like the interlude music and transitioning between tracks, and that was a lot of thought that went into it.
Yeah, I tell you what, when we're at practice nowadays, you know, because we played the song so many times, you know, especially the older ones, you know, like it's come to the point where sometimes at practices we'll just do the interludes because that's the bit that we chop and change a bit, like, you know, between shows and between tours, because what you got to remember is if we swap songs around, the interludes will have to change, because depending on what's going on in that song, you don't really want like a slow build up coming into like a really heavy thing, and so it's something that changes quite a lot. So sometimes we'll play through the set for the end of the 30 seconds of each and the beginning of the 30 seconds of the next one, and then just play the interlude. So, but John tends to create all the interludes, and then sort of so what we've done now, which we actually learned on the Holding Absence tour, which is very nice for our interlude sort of bits, which we all have in-ear monitors now, so we all have like stuff going on inside our ears, and it literally has a talking like Siri voice that goes, talk now, and it goes, talk about merch. So pull it bands to stage, and I tell you what, it got a while to get used to, but it is so good, because there'll be a sort of, sometimes when you're just so in the moment, you just get so lost where you are, and it'll remind you of what song it is. Perfect. It goes like, hiding from myself, talk about merch. I'm like, oh. And then it gives me like a 1, 2, 3, 4 to count in when to talk.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Wow.
And that was that was Holding Absence that gave us that little tip, and I tell you what, it's been such a lifesaver.
Incredible. I can remember when we've played shows and that, and we've always had to like force like the front singer to talk about merch or talk about something.
Write it on
else.
the set list.
Write it
on the set list.
Yeah. And we'd have like, at one point we had like a set list specifically for whoever was singing for us at that point, where there'd be like big blocks that say talk merch, talk EP.
Well, mine was the same up until about 2 weeks ago. So I honestly like
that's game changing though.
It's so refreshing, because I don't even need to worry about even having set lists, because all the songs are just told to me in my ear, and whatever anybody needs to know, it's just spoken to. It's like, oh, this song's next, this is what you need to talk about. And and also our sound man can talk to us in our ears, which is quite hilarious. But when I said, oh, you know, I was like, oh, thank you so much to all our, you know, new tour friends, and he just went, oh, friend. All you can hear. I was like, thanks, Chris.
You're getting mocked in your in-ears as you're trying to be professional.
So that's why interludes, like, we do practice them a lot, because there can be a lot of distraction, but it's very important you get it right. And I think that's something we've sort of learned through as we go. You know, if you have a confident interlude going into a song, it tends to kind of come across a bit more professional. I think that was always something before we were lacking, that we didn't quite get right. And I think when we are still learning, like, we're still learning these little tips and tricks that help us going forward. And I think that's going to be a massive one now going forward.
I think you're always learning stuff when it comes to like just being in a band. From like my own personal experience, like there is always going to be something that you'll have to like pick up or learn or alter, etc. Now with this tour, obviously there was quite a few restrictions in place, because we were meant to be speaking to you whilst you guys were on tour, but obviously with everything that's going on, it made more sense to do it this way. Did you find in some aspects that touring during a COVID aspect, there was a few things that you had to alter, or was it pretty much the same aspects as before?
So when we're on tour, obviously every touring party is different depending on what they want to do. Obviously the government guidance at the moment is pretty free reign in the UK. You know, there's no compulsory mask wearing, you know, there's no social distancing really. It's pretty much back to what we would say quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
But our touring part and Holding Absence were like, you know, just want to let you know, as to make sure the tour goes ahead, we just want to introduce some sort of things where like we had to stay backstage for the whole tour. We couldn't meet with fans, which was gutting, but do you know what, how many bands I've seen cancel tours because either them or a member of their crew has caught COVID.
Yeah,
I totally understand why that was a thing. And you know that, you know, we've all poured money into this tour. You know, yours truly have flown over from Australia. Like, I totally understand, and it worked. None of us got COVID. We did testing every single day as well. Every day we had to do the swab, send a picture, do the NHS thing. So, and people, if you did have to go anywhere, you wore a mask. But it was quite nice because like it gave a good chance for all the bands to really mingle. Because sometimes if people are often everywhere, you don't often get to like have a sort of good relationship with certain members of other bands. But actually, it was really nice. So we kind of all just spent time together, and it was definitely a really good relationship builder. And got a bit insane at points, you know, when there was a really small venue. But we managed, and I say, well, it was definitely worth the fact that the tour didn't get interrupted at all by COVID, and it was so worth it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like you said, the amount of bands I've seen cancel massive blocks of the tour because someone in the team has got COVID. The amount is happening now is terrifying.
People forget it's not just the band, it's the crew as well. So if somebody on the crew gets it, that's it as well. So it's a really hard one, because there's 6 of us in the band, but there's 9 of us in our touring crew. So 9 people you have to try and not to get to COVID. It's quite hard.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So how was the download pilot then? That must have been an experience and a half.
Do you know what? I wish I could say that I enjoyed it. I did, but I don't remember it, because I wish I could say I was drunk as well, but I wasn't, because it was about 11:30, 12 o'clock. I was so I couldn't believe we were there. It was the first show back. The last show before that we played was to like 20 people in High Wycombe. So the download pilot was like, we were sort of hanging around backstage, and there was a band on before us, and we were like, oh, it's fine, like it's all cool. And then like the band on the other stage were playing, and then loads of people disappeared, and I was like, oh, it's fine, there's not that many people. And then the band on the other stage finished, and it just filled up. The whole tent just filled, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I'm so terrified. And it was one of those moments, when you're a kid and you imagine like all these moments you want as an adult, your bucket list things. And I totally just did a bucket list thing and don't even remember it, because I was so scared. I was just like, I came off stage, I was like but the good thing is, since then I've not even got shakes going on stage. Like, it's almost like it's wiped this weird like sense of sort of like, it's set the bar high.
Yeah.
100%. I walked down, there was like, oh my god, thousands of people there, and I was like, cool, this is just okay. And it was weird, and I didn't expect that there to be that many people there for how early we were playing. I think that was as well, like I thought there'd maybe be like a couple of hundred people, but there was thousands, and there was apparently more people there for bands later on, and that was so mad to hear, because we're such a new band as well, and also to be offered the opportunity to play Download Pilot and the Download Festival next year as well. It's just insane, and I'm so grateful, and it's just bizarre, basically. Had a great day though after that. Once I came off, I was like, cool, get to go and watch some bands now. But the best part of our download, and we still laugh about it to this day because it still happens, I've got this one particular jacket that people stop me in the street and they're like, I love your jacket, it's like black, it's fluffy and it's black, and it's got like pink love hearts all over it. And as I was like walking through the crowd, like watching bands, I watched them from the crowd because it sounds better. And like people would stop me, and there were some people who were stopping me, being like, "Oh, are you Charlie?" etc. And there was this lady who stopped me and went, "Oh my god!" And I went, "Oh, do you want a picture?" Like, because I think I was just so in that moment. She went, "Oh no, I just really love your jacket," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, embarrassing. And then I had to be like, recover from this, and I was sort of like, so I just sort of stood there for a moment and sort of like twisted my past around, like, I'm not just some random weirdo that's just like asked you for a photo. Honestly. And then there was about 4 or 5 people later on that asked, like, "Oh, I really like your jacket," and I was just like, from now on, I just can't forget that moment. It's just imprinted in my mind, and I download Pilot now.
Did you bump into any of like your idols or anything backstage? Because obviously it's download just full of just amazing bands. And
I made a right tit of myself in front of Sleeps. I was like, like you're sort of, I would walk it. It wasn't really. It was a weird one, like, because we were kind of in a corner, like our dressing room was kind of like up against a wall effectively, so we didn't really, and we don't really know anyone in the industry. Like the artist area has like benches and people were chatting to each other, but obviously we don't really have any like one that we know that we can sort of get in with, and you can't just like walk up to like while she's eating and go, "Hi friends," like it's just not it's just not the done thing. So they were walking past, and I think I'd either just come off stage and I was in that weird zone where I was like a bit flustered and a bit all over the place, and I saw them and I was like, I've got to say something, I've just got to say something in passing, and I went, "You guys are really good." It was fucking 12 o'clock in the afternoon, they hadn't even played yet, and I was like, oh, I can't believe that, I can't believe I've just done that. But I don't think they heard me. They kind of looked over, I don't think they heard what I said. I'm hoping they didn't hear, or they just ignored me and they're like, who is this strange woman? There you go. That's what happened to me. But I didn't particularly meet any idols. I saw Rent a Shikari sort of around. I'd really love to meet them because they're like a band I've sort of grown up listening to. But hopefully at Download next year I might meet people and not make it in myself. That would be nice.
Yeah, well, next
Fingers
year.
crossed.
Yeah, I'm gonna say next year it'll be a big one anyway because they could get all the big guns right next year.
Yeah, I know. They're gonna have to lock me away so I don't embarrass myself.
The best thing I've seen with like a band like backstage was there was a guy, I can't remember what band it was, and I think it was at Leeds Fest, and Dave Grohl's band was playing, called Them Crooked Vultures, I think, where it's John Paul Jones.
Oh,
Dave
it's like
Grohl
the
and
supergroup one.
Yeah, the supergroup.
Yeah.
And there was a photo that you've probably seen it. It went around online, and this guy from this band had fallen asleep in the backstage area outside in one of the gardens. He'd had too much to drink. He'd passed out, and Dave Grohl and John Paul Jones took a selfie with him while he was asleep. And he had a Led Zeppelin t-shirt on as well.
Oh my God.
He never even knew that he met John Paul Jones until he saw the photo circulating online.
That's amazing. And do you know what? We've got a similar story, not quite on the level of Led Zeppelin, but there was a guy, Owen sent this photo, Owen's the guitarist and as everything unfolds, he sent this picture on the group chat, and it was like him like doing this, like sort of crouching on the floor, like behind this guy that had an As Everything Unfolds like t-shirt or hoodie on.
Yeah.
And then he shared it on our Discord group like after the gig, and he was like, "What? You didn't even come and say hi." So Owen just took a picture behind it. And then at the London show, the guy was there, and then finally they got a photo together. But it was like, I was like, oh, for God's sake, Owen. I was like, so mean. Not quite as cool as Dave Grohl, you know, that would be like pretty life-changing, I think.
Just seeing that photo online, I'd be slapping
You would be
myself. The fact that I
mortified.
had a Led Zeppelin t-shirt on and John Paul Jones was stood next to me with Dave Grohl, I'd be like, fuck.
That's amazing. If you mentioned Shikari, then I'm curious. Then, what would you say is like your favorite Shikari album?
Oh, people hate me, but it's Take to the Skies. Like, I just hands down, it's Take to the Skies. Like,
Yes.
and I know, you know what? And I hate saying this because I understand, like, and I totally understand this as a band and a musician. When fans like their first album, it's like the worst thing ever. You're like, why do you like this? It's fucking awful. Like, it's so bad. Like, you know, and I know that they probably feel that about that album, but like Shikari are quite local to me, and they've been kind of like quite ingrained in like the local like sort of music scene here. And I've known about them for years. And obviously then the second album will be Common Dreads. I mean, to be honest with you, I stopped religiously listening to them after A Flash Flood of Colour. And then I've only recently kind of started getting back into them, but really only songs here and there, like the singles and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do think they are incredible. It's nothing against like their songwriting. I think their songwriting is the best it's ever been, in my opinion. But it's just something that I've not really spent time listening to, and I know I need to. But they are such an incredible band, and a credit to the British music scene, in my opinion.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I kind of like drifted from a little bit, and then I came back and I listened to some of the newer stuff, and they're like aging like a fine wine. They're like
100%. Yeah.
Better.
Weirdly, British bands seem to like age like fine, like, you know, Sleeps and Shikari, Bring Me. All these bands have been around for so long, and they're in their prime now. And you're thinking, how are you, you know, in a good way, where it's like, you know, I feel like British bands have this weird thing of like, we're going to start out doing this like mental, like metal, like crazy stuff, and then we're just going to like slowly introduce the thing. But it's very smart, very clever. I like it.
I think there's a thing of when you're younger, though, like when you're a teenager, etc., where the way you absorb music is very different to when you're older. Like, because it's very much the thing of that where you're like, oh, I want to discover new bands, but you'll still go back to that album from 2010 because you're so familiar with it, you're religious to it that
you're emotionally connected to it. I think. Because it's one of the first things that you heard from that band, or that was part of yourself when you was younger. Like, it's sort of nostalgic in a way, in it, when you listen to those albums. Like every time you hear like Mothership or something like that, it just reminds me of being in like this one of the under 18s nightclubs we had over here, like a rock club, and every time they played Mothership, everyone would go fucking insane. And it's just one of those things that's just ingrained in yourself. And like that's why we go back to it. It doesn't mean they're just as good as the newer stuff. Just means that we enjoy listening to it a bit more. I
think it just as a musician now, there are, you know, some of our fans are like like really like our first self-recorded, self-produced EP, which is very questionable in my opinion. And I'm just like, I look at it and I'm like, the songs themselves are good, but everything else around it was terrible. Like the production is terrible. We were so young and we just had no idea what we were doing. And like, do not get me wrong, it taught me so much, and I'm glad we did things that way. But at the same time, people are like, oh, these songs are so fucking good. And I'm like, all right.
Again, I've seen it from someone else's perspective. And obviously you must have done a really good job. The fact that it's actually stuck with those people and it's the first thing they heard from yourself. So
I think if somebody like came across us in that era, it's the ones that go back. That's the people I don't get. I'm like, excuse me, no.
But it's like the stuff where you like when you first start playing music and like writing music. Like I remember mine and Mike, like we've been in the same bands throughout for like the past 15 years or whatever. And like with the first time we were recording, I remember specifically that with me being a guitarist, I'd wrote the rhythm parts but no lead. So like
right, okay.
I just hadn't comprehended that another guitarist would exist and you can actually record two guitars on the same track. So like we got to this producer guy and he was just like, where's the other guitar part? I was like, what do you mean? It was just like,
that's it. Like you just don't comprehend these. And I think, when we went into self-produce, some of us had done like music tech at college, and we were like teenagers when we did this. We were like, I was still in sixth form. So like we were kids when we did this. So it was like, and we were like really ambitious, like, yeah, we're going to do it ourselves. And granted, a lot of the reason we did it ourselves was money, because we didn't have the money, we weren't backed by a label at 17 years old. And, so we had to do it all ourselves. And I do think it does make you understand the process and how difficult it is and why you should go to somebody who knows what they're doing. And I think that's definitely what we did afterwards. Obviously, we had to go through that whole process to understand that. But I do think, in terms of a band, and I don't know why, but a lot of bands start like that. A lot of bands start self-producing and they learn sort of how they work internally and how it all sort of comes together. And then you sort of, every time you take a step up. And I think that is one thing with AU that we're always looking to do, is every time we do something, it's a step up. So every time we record something, we want to go with someone new. We want to try something new. We don't want to sit stagnant. And not that anybody's been bad that we've worked with. It's more just like, I like the idea of getting as much sort of input as possible. We're quite open musically, we're quite open creatively to work with people. So we're sort of like, right, cool, that really worked, and we'll definitely keep you in mind, but we're going to go to the next person, try next one.
Yeah. So,
and hopefully we can work all the way up to Bendev, who did Right by Paramore, and then we're okay there.
That album is insane in production.
It's one of the best produced. It's one of the best produced albums of all time, like just hands down. And the guy who produced our Within Each Lies the Other album got mentored by Bendev, which is kind of like quite a big deal in that. So he's kind of uses a lot of tips and tricks, and it was part of the reason we sort of went with him. He's got these sort of nuances that you sort of like, that really like that sort of clean. I don't know. It's like everything's really clear.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot going on, but you can hear everything like really, really clearly. And that was something that we were really interested in for the album we've just done.
Yeah.
But then the album going forward, we're now looking for something slightly different. So that's why we're sort of potentially looking at somebody else.
That's
so,
cool.
Because this band chops and changes what we're doing all the time. So that's the fun of it.
But that's the best thing about songwriting. Like for example, me personally, I wouldn't write the same way that I wrote when I was 17. Like,
no, I wouldn't even write the same way I wrote 2 years ago. Like,
well, that's the thing.
When I wrote the album before, like, we've already written our second album. It's done. So it's like, and already we're now moving forward and looking at the next thing. And I'm going, oh, there's things I wouldn't have done, but I know it's right for that album. You kind of, there comes a point, because we were saying to the boys, I was like, we need to stop at some point. Like, there comes a point where we need to stop album 2 and move on to album 3. And it's but I like the fact that we keep changing and evolving, because that's what keeps it exciting as well. So just pouring myself some more wine.
It's okay.
Why not? What you on? A red or a white?
Yeah, just a
nice
red from down the shop. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's a Merlot. There we go. It's I just fancied it tonight.
Why not?
It's the first time I've not even got myself a drink. I've actually not brought one upstairs.
Oh,
I've got
No,
this colossal mug, but it's just got water in.
Yes.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it was just like the last few days at work. I'm just like, I've had 2 days no wine when I get in from work, and today I was like, wine, please.
Don't blame you. Now, I want to talk about the on the inside video because it is insane how good the production is in that video. It is incredible.
Thank you.
How did you do that video?
I tell you what, that it's really funny. That was one of the most fun videos we ever did, because videos can be quite tedious, like, you know, repeating. But
Yeah.
that one was done differently, and it didn't occur to me till the day, like Zach Pitchin, who did the video.
Oh,
Obviously,
sick.
I sort of discussed with him, like, you know, before we get on a call and we talk about the video, and we had to choreograph every section. So every time there's sort of a shot and a cut, so that whole section, I think there's about 6 or 7 like in the whole video of sort of these bits. Every bit was choreographed, and this house we went to in Liverpool, it had like loads of different corridors and stuff, so we'd have to like figure it out. So the whole idea was that like it just kept moving through this house from like top to the bottom floor, and then obviously when the group shots, it kind of comes back into the same room, goes back out for the chorus and stuff. But
Yeah.
it was just ridiculous, honestly. There's videos online, I'll maybe send them to you later, of like behind the scenes where like one of us will be playing, and then Zach will like turn around, and then we all have to run, change places, and then all get back again, and then carry on like nothing's happened, because it's all a one shot.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you can't.
amazing.
And in one of the shots in the video, you can see Adam in the corridor in one of them. So you'll have to go back and watch it now and find it. You can literally see him just stood in the hallway, and I'm like, fuck's sake. But no, it's like he's just not meant to be there. And then like
awkwardly stood there like shit.
But there's like, you know, for the first bit, it was like, you know, it starts off where it's me sort of going down, and then the camera completely does a turn. I then have to run, I have to follow Zach, so I'm not in the shot. Like I have to run behind him the whole then shot he did round George, like a 360 sort of shot. He runs into this room. I then have to go to this separate corridor. George and Owen swap places. It's just chaos.
Wow.
And we had to do this so many times. It was hilarious because, you know, one person would fuck up and then the whole thing had to be done. We're like, oh no, fancy. And then when I did my bit, I had to like run backwards. And then like as I was doing it, it sort of like I fell, and literally Zach just caught me, and I was just like, this is a fucking disaster, mate. But it looks great. And it was so much fun, but it was so cold. We did that in God, I think it was like, oh, I don't know, dead of winter last year. It was so cold. And there was no roof on the building because it's like a sort of like semi-abandoned building. And there was just pigeon shit everywhere. And it was just like, but it was one of the best days we've had as a band in terms of doing a video. Because I find the sort of, you know, you play through the song for 3.5 minutes, then you do it again, and then you do it again. Like it gets very uninspiring. Yeah. Whereas when we were doing that, it was kind of like once we'd done a whole section, then that was it. That bit was done. You didn't have to do that bit of the song again. You just went to the next bit of the song.
That's insane.
And just kept going. And it was actually a really refreshing way of doing a video. And I was like, we're doing this again. Because it weirdly took less time. Once you got it right, once you got the right shot, you're done. Like there was some of them where we did it like once or twice and that was it. It was done. Like especially like the group ones. But there was one where it was the sort of one where we had this like really big strobe light, and I had to like run to a corridor behind while he was filming and like this thing, and I had to meet up with him on the other side. And there was a couple of times where I didn't make it in time, and he'd turn around and I'd not be there, and I'd be like, oh fuck. It was like to the millisecond it had to be done. So yeah, no, it was great fun though. It was great fun. I'd recommend doing something like that.
That's insane. It sort of reminds me of there's a famous one where it's Jim Carrey did the TV series. I can't remember the name of it now, but there's like one shot in it where it's basically someone watching the TV, but it goes through different seasons of the year, and it was all done within one shot, and everyone has to move the furniture and everything changes over that. It's just insane.
I know what one you mean. I don't know what it's from, but I've seen it like so many times. Yeah.
Is that the one where he's living within a world where people are like?
Oh, it's not.
What's it
it's
called?
when he's like a TV presenter or something like that.
What's it called?
It's got long
Truman
hair.
Show. Is it the Truman
Show? Yeah,
it's not Truman Show. It was like past couple of years. It came out. I'm gonna have to Google it really quick.
Yeah, because I know what you mean. I've seen it like so many times. But yeah, it's really fun to do something that's like not edited, I suppose, like you know, genuine like choreography, because it was so much fun. It was
called Kidding.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Watch that.
Came out in 2018.
Oh, there you go. But I've seen that scene, so there you go.
I mean, with the video, like it pays off though, because people can see like how funny it would have been to make at the same time, but how much work you guys put into it. And yeah, those tracking shots are just so fucking smooth between each thing, and when it spins around and then you're all in the same room, and those transitions, it's like bob on. So yeah, big ups to Zach then for.
Yeah, no, he's
I've
a good lad.
always wanted to work with Zach.
He's really good. He's really good to work with. He's so like broad. Like, you know, go into him, you know that whatever idea you have, he'll make it work. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have to worry about, oh no, I can't do that. He'll be like, yeah, I'll do it. And the more extreme, the more he likes it. Like the more creative and the more batshit, he loves it. So when we said about that video, he was like, fuck yes, let's make it work. So yeah, so it was great.
Hey, that's amazing. Whereabouts in Liverpool was it? Because with us being in Wigan, it's quite local to us.
I you know what, I don't know, but it's basically funny story about the place. It's been in about multiple people's bands videos. So Loathe, Vexed, Lestelle, they've all used the place. It's so big, you can basically do a video in every room and no one would know that you've used the same venue.
Yeah.
So it's only now that I watch bands, I'm like, oh yeah, like this, like oh that room. So but the place is owned by this dude. It's like a really old like manor house or something. And it was used as like a Masonic lodge and a community hall, and it's been used as like various different things. And this guy bought it for like, it's fucking like the roof's fallen through, and he bought it for like fuck all money, and basically he rents it out for like no money at all. This is old dude, and like there was points where we were filming this video and he just sort of appear, and obviously Owen, there was one point where Owen was like, fuck me, like he just screamed, and I was like, what? He was like, fuck, you can't do that to me. Like this man just appeared from this hallway, and he's like, you know, he's proper like this, like, you know, oh my god. And Owen shit himself. And then Owen proceeded to tell us after we'd been at the venue when we were leaving that he thinks he saw a ghost. Then went home and looked it up. He's been on Most Haunted. So Jamie, our drummer, is shit scared of anything like that. So he's like, yeah, he's like, so no, we're not going there again. We're not doing anything there again. I refuse to go. So no, it's great. It's a great place to film videos, and it's quite well used by bands, which is great because obviously, you know, sometimes it's hard for bands to find venues that are reasonably priced and have power. It's also a thing that in abandoned places, you know, it's you sort of go, how do we get power? It's like people go, oh, let's do a video outside. Power. If you want lights. So yeah, it's great. It's good. So let me know if you want to know where it is.
Yes, absolutely. It was so it reminds me of like our old practice place. It was apparently haunted. It was like an abandoned mill, and they've done it up somewhat. See, it still looked partially like a shithole, but it was like a functioning shithole.
Yeah. Like most music venues in the UK, basically.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But like, Mike, what was the story about? Was it our actual building on next door where it was like it was used as like so Victorian mill or something?
Yeah, it was all like a cotton mill and stuff, and then there's a section where it's like the Wigan roller rink now. And apparently people who used to work there were getting pushed down the stairs and all sorts of things. And there was one but the hall where the roller rink is apparently was used as like the dining room hall. And apparently I knew someone who used to work there, like, well, while it was a rink. Well, it still is a rink, but anyway, they went in there once for like just to close up the shop and that, and they said they could smell like Christmas dinner as they was leaving. Like it smelled, they had the aroma of like a Christmas dinner, like, and that was the hall, like where they would have had all the food and stuff. So I don't know how much I believe it, but it's cool to believe like that sort of stuff happens. But it always seems to be like the abandoned mills and that all the practice rooms are based in as well, especially around here. It's just a common
just
thing.
Farm buildings normally, or industrial estates.
It's either one or the other. It's one extreme, or it's abandoned shithole that's been done up somewhat. Yeah,
all the guys in America get all like the mum's basements and like garages and stuff. Like, we don't.
I feel like we've been left out of that. I feel very sad about like, you know, I never got to record an album in my mum's basement, and that makes me very upset.
There's been noise complaints. I remember when we started like doing practices when we was in high school. We had the next door to our drummers knocking on because it was like, this is too loud.
Yeah.
We used to know when we first started this band years and years and years ago. We used to practice in Adam's, bless Adam's parents. They were so good. They used to let us practice at their house. And there did come a point, you know, when it started to get a bit more serious and, you know, we'd be practicing for quite a few hours.
Yeah.
And there did come a point where they were like, we can't do this anymore. It's so loud. You know, there was more and more people joining the band and, you know, we'd get a proper drummer in and it was like, right, we need to not do this here anymore. But we did get away with it for quite a few years. So, you know, that's good of them.
There's always that breaking point. There's only so far you can push your parents in terms of like noise level before it's like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go chase your dreams, but don't do it in my house, please.
Yeah.
You do you, but not here. Now, Ryan has told us to mention Thunderbirds Are Go.
God.
Yeah, what wasn't this year like national anthem for your tour or something like that?
So okay, but right, this band is just this band makes no sense. So that's what I'm going to just point out at the beginning, right? Things become things for no reason whatsoever. That's just the biggest context I can give this. So we just started now when we turn up to shows, when we're like 3.5 minutes away from the venue, we play Thunderbirds Are Go when we're arriving. Like that's what we do. No, I don't know why. And we measure time in bat out of hells. So we say how many bat out of hells till we're there. Well, 20 bat out of hells. And it's just one of these things where like, so we've started playing Thunderbirds Are Go, and like this is where it gets worse. So as we were going on stage in London for the Holding Absence show, it's one of the biggest like normal shows we've done apart from like Download. And as a joke, we were like to Chris or Sam, like, oh, play Thunderbirds Are Go before we go on stage. It'd be so funny. The whole fucking electric ballroom was singing Thunderbirds Are Go.
Yes.
On stage.
Yes.
And I was like, but obviously no one in the room will have known. This is the first time I'm talking about it publicly. So anybody that listens to this, you're the first to hear it. So yeah, we chose that because we were like, oh yeah, it'd be so funny, ha ha ha. And we were just like, actually, this is quite embarrassing because it's a personal like joke and no one else understands.
Yeah.
And we turned up at the Dixons, who are lovely people that put up bands, and they had a plate. It was almost like you couldn't write it. They had a plate with Thunderbirds on it, which is the photo that Ryan put on Ryan put on Facebook. And I was like, this is made for us. Like, this is too weird. And it was like, they had it like in a pile, and Ryan picked it up and went, oh, Thunderbirds! Like, we were just like, we were all like, no, that's so creepy.
You know what the next step is, don't you?
Story.
You know what the next step's going to be? You guys got to cover it live.
No. That's step too far.
You're going to surprise us with it.
Go petition it now.
Make it your own.
As everyone falls, cover of Thunderbirds Are Go.
Oh my god, it'd be dreadful. It'd be with a breakdown in the middle. Could you imagine?
Yeah. A revamp of a classic.
When you're confined in a van with the same people for this amount of time, this is the kind of shit you come up with.
Yeah.
So like, you know, how many bat out of hells? Oh, 1.5 bat out of hells. Oh, okay, thank you very much. And then we listened to Bat Out of Hell. And like, it was just, you know, the intro to the intro, and we'd all sing along, and it gets very insane. It gets very insane. But no, it's that's why I love touring though. Touring is so much fun. Like it's just, you know, being in an environment like that with a lot of people, obviously you're close to these people, but it can get very intense and quite like heated and whatever, but actually it's the best time ever at the same time. You know, you're coming up with these, you know, like when you sort of go insane because you're sort of hysterical, you know, when you get overtired and things are funny that are not funny, that's it, but all the time.
Do you find it though like oh, go on, Mike. Go on.
Yeah, that's the sort of stuff that keeps you sane though. Like the insane stuff keeps you sane. It's a weird sort of thing. Do
you not find it though, like when you come out of that ecosystem and you make the personal jokes, but you reference it to people that don't know about it?
Yeah, the whole electric ballroom.
Yeah, and you're like, I feel like a bit of a pleb now because you make these references and they're like, what the fuck are you on about? I'm like,
yeah, I was like, you know, 7 bat out of hell. What? You know, it's ridiculous.
Right, shall we move on to our first segment then?
Yes.
Yeah, go on then.
So, Charlie, what's your favourite scary movie?
Okay. I watch a lot of scary films. I watch a lot of horror films. I'm not a big fan of classic horror films, which I know, like, A lot of people are, I know, but I'm really into like psychological horror, that kind of side of horror, not like Conjuring jump scare. Like, love the Conjuring series, but like it kind of became a little bit shit towards the end.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't really know. I'm gonna have to think. It's oh my god, I'm trying to think of a film that's genuinely intrigued me, because I think that's it for me. A horror film is good if it intrigues me and I actually find it interesting and a unique concept, which I found Insidious was quite a unique concept, and I liked the concept of like the sort of astral plane and like the sort of in between. There was parts of it where I was kind of like, but I did quite like the way it kind of came full circle with the lost key or whatever, the door one, whatever that one was. I quite like, again, like a lot of the acting's a bit naff, and some of it kind of became a bit sort of Bollywood cliche towards the end, but I really like the concept of sort of the full circle where he ended up triggering his own sort of problems in the beginning, and I quite like that. But to be honest, one of my favorite films, and it is so underrated. It was marketed as a horror film, but it isn't really. But it's got horror aspects. Is The Village?
Oh, The Village, right.
I am a big fan of The Village. I think the acting is phenomenal. I think it's fucking great. The problem with that film got let down by its marketing, because it was marketed like, on a big scary night, and it's like, it's not that kind of film. It's literally. So and I think I remember seeing it for the first time, and it's quite, I think it's 2004. It's quite an old film. But I remember seeing that twist for the first time. The M. Night typical twist. But it kind of proper threw me off, and the end was all about actually it's like a big commune that all these people that have like been through stuff have moved to, but it was interesting how they were sort of using like this sort of creature to keep people there. I really liked it, and I think it's a really underrated film. Joaquin Phoenix is amazing in it. Is it Bryce Dallas Howard as well? So good. And I can't remember his name, who was in The Pianist.
Too sure.
No, but he's great, absolutely great film. So, but it doesn't come under like quintessential like horror, but I would say. And I also enjoyed, obviously, Hereditary. Probably one of my most favorite like up to date sort of horror films. And Midsummer. That was,
right. That's Ryan non-stop talks about Hereditary, and
and it's so good.
Like his tip-top ones, aren't they?
I think because recently, recently talking in the last sort of 10-15 years, horror films have been so like Hollywood troped with like big 100%. Jump scares and blood and things that and people have got kind of bored of that, and now these like, or like The Witch, there was that this sort of era of now like these weird sort of slightly different horror films, more artsy horror films are kind of coming in, and I'm totally here for it, because it is.
Where do you sit with The Witch? So I watched it for the first time this year at a drive-in. I didn't know what to expect, because I was like, right, I know it exists as a film, but I've never actually like seen anything about it. And I'd seen The Lighthouse before that, so I kind of knew what aspects
you were going
to go into.
I did not like The Lighthouse, and I
The
really
Lighthouse is wild.
It's a fever dream and a half. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I really appreciated how unique and hard that must have been to act and direct. That must have been, it was really interesting. But I did not particularly like it. The Witch, on the other hand, I really, really liked. I'm really into like New England history. Like I really, really find like the Pilgrims and all that kind of stuff really interesting. So it really appealed to me. I find like sort of the study of witchcraft as in like, I don't study it as in like, I find like history of witchcraft interesting. A lot of my dissertation weirdly was sort of done on a lot of that stuff. So when it came out, I was like, oh fuck. But basically what it is that what people misunderstand is it's actually a film of a story that would be told to people in the villages to scare them from leaving. So it's like a visual representation of a sort of fear tactic. So it's like, oh, if you leave the village, this will happen to you. And it's the story of the witch. So whereas, which kind of gives it a little bit more of an interesting sort of spin to it, where you're like, because people go, oh, for God's sake, that wouldn't happen. And you're like, no, but it basically brings all the fears of people at that time about witchcraft and about the devil and about, your crops failing, all of it all into one story, big, nice little package story that they can feed to people and be like, be afraid of leaving. That's what it is, which I found that. I find like the underlying kind of things are filmed quite often more interesting than the films actually are.
Yeah, and like it's crazy to believe that people actually believe that stuff as well at the time. Like they thought that was a genuine thing, which is why obviously all these women would like getting basically killed because they were apparently witches if they were like studying medicine or doing their own things. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy that that was an actual thing. And obviously we had it over here with the Pendle witches, and you've got the Salem witches in Massachusetts and all that, like I said, in New England. So it's crazy how on a global scale that was like a thing that affected a lot of people, and yeah, it's just stayed with us throughout like mythology and all that sort of thing. So it was a good film in terms of bringing that to light and showing. I
thought the acting was so good, and I liked that it was done in like sort of Old English as well.
Yeah.
Which obviously the Lighthouse was
up the northern
like that,
accents.
but like the Lighthouse was a little bit too much, sort of to the point where I was like, I don't understand what any of these people are saying.
Yes.
Like it kind of actually distracted too much. There's like a fine line between getting it right to the point for realism and getting it too wrong where everyone's like, what? You sort of like, like it's almost funny because you're not understanding it.
It's the comedy of Willem Dafoe's voice.
Like, the Green Goblin in the Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And the seagull as well, poor thing.
Fucking seagull. He's knock and run and fucks off.
Yeah.
It was the more I think about it, it is a good film. It is, in terms of from a filmmaking perspective, it's especially, like I said, in these days where everything's quite just a money making machine where it just churns out the same stuff. It's nice to see something different. So I suppose I appreciate it for that. Same with The Witch, same with sort of Midsommar and Hereditary. Hereditary was a little bit more classic, which I think is why it's been way more integrated into sort of the more mainstream horror side.
Yeah.
But it's really well done, and it did freak me out. The score is so fucking freaky, and I think that's underrated in Hereditary as well.
The score in Midsommar as well, like the one of the first scenes where it's the shot going from the car to where her parents are and where her sister is, where it blends like the car alarm into the actual soundtrack itself, is just horrible.
Yeah, I think that gets underrated a lot in like sort of indie films and stuff, like how much more the filmmakers think about their scores than just sort of churning out just the same squeaky violin noise that normally goes into like the quintessential horrors. I could talk about this shit all day, mate. This is literally in my spare time. I just watch like YouTube videos about films, and I love doing like deep dives on films. And I am strange.
I love it.
We'll have to get you into HorrorFest next year.
Yeah, definitely. Did you watch Train to Busan by any chance?
Never heard of it.
So obviously, you was on Silver Screen Unseen, Ryan's show, and you did Parasite, which is like a Korean sort of thriller. It sort of borders on. It's not really horror, but it's sort of.
It borders on so many genres. Yeah.
Well, Train to Busan is another Korean film that came out around the same time, but it's like a zombie film. But the way they've done it is unlike any other zombie film you've like seen before. It's like it puts a new perspective on it, and like, 'cause you got a lot of films, like obviously zombie films in general, that churned out the same stuff as you were saying. But this one, it just gives you a new perspective on it, and they're all, as it says, trapped on a train to Busan. But a load of different shit happens.
Is that not just Snowpiercer with zombies then?
Minus Chris Evans.
But yeah. Well, I think if you enjoyed,
it sounds good.
If you enjoyed Parasite, I think you'll really enjoy that, because it's like the thought that went into it as well, with the character development and everyone actually in the film and the way it ends. And yeah, I'm not going to spoil it, but
don't, because that sounds right on my street. Yeah,
and watch that before the US remake comes out, like the next year or so, which is called Train to New York.
Oh shit! What?
Of course, they had to call it Train to New York as well, didn't they?
Of course they did.
Couldn't help themselves.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's in New York.
Oh, okay. I'll bear that in mind.
Aren't they redoing Parasite though with Mark Ruffalo in it?
This is Hollywood,
which is weird, which I don't understand, because like Parasite won an Oscar, which is pretty much an American award. So the film has been well received in America. So why are you remaking it?
Leave it alone.
Yeah, just leave it. Let these people have it. Like, just fucking stop. Just
Yeah.
stop, America. Just
I
stop.
agree.
Stop it.
It's fine, and I'm so glad like a lot of like foreign media is starting to be consumed, like even Squid Game, how massive that's been.
Yeah.
And it's because I feel like a lot of the reason people are now craving a lot of sort of even stuff like when Spirited Away started becoming a thing, people are craving non-Western media because they just are so fed up of the same recycled storylines, the same formulas that are followed, whereas they don't follow that same formula we follow. So, or they sort of mix the formula we follow but with their own formulas, so it's a little bit more interesting and it's new and it's fresh and it's exciting. And I'm so glad that there is now becoming a much more worldwide market for media just in general, whether it be film or TV shows or anything like that. And companies like Netflix pushing it is great because they're the biggest streaming platform. And something like Squid Game, I mean, that would not have got the the reception it got had it not had the push of Netflix. And I know Netflix has its problems and all this, but actually it's great because now I think people who wouldn't have watched something like in Korean might now go and watch something in Korean that they wouldn't have thought of before, because they're like, oh, actually it wasn't that bad when I watched it with subtitles, or I watched the dubbed version if they want to. It's fine as long as they're consuming it and it's they're enjoying it. I think it's great. 100%.
Absolutely. Right, so let's get on to our final and second segment, which is, Charlie, what is your pet peeve?
Just in general.
What pisses you off in life?
What pisses you off the most? It could be the pettiest thing on the planet.
Okay. I don't know, because it's one of those things. Nothing really annoys me, like big annoys me, but it's like little things. And I'm trying to think of those little things. I don't like it when people can't use their cutlery properly.
Right.
And it's stupid. Like when you're in and the problem is when I'm in a restaurant and I catch my eye of somebody using a knife and fork wrong, the whole move, like the whole evening is ruined, because I will spend the whole time watching them and I'm just like, because like my brother is not good with cutlery, and I think that's where it comes from. Like he's much more haphazard. I've always been taught, put it to the side, and it's just sort of something that it's a really big sort of habit of mine. And then my brother will come in and cut and then put his knife down and then put his fork in his other hand, and I'm like, no. And it's stress, and I think it's maybe come from the fact that he's done it and it's always irked me, and that's why it bugs me. That's probably one of them, but I don't really know what else annoys me.
So with you talking about cutlery then, so in your mindset then, the rules of cutlery, what are they?
I'm not fussed about like the cutlery where you use, I know you go outwards in, but I don't really go to anything that has that much cutlery normally. I just go to like Nando's, but like
I have a small spoon for my rice.
But it's kind of like, I just think like you put it in the sort of triangle shape when you're not done, and you put them together into the side when it's done. And I think it's just general, like you use your fork and you hold it just normally. I don't know how to explain it. Like you just
I get you, because my other half is the exact same with it, where she finishes a meal, she doesn't put a knife and fork together, she just drops it on the plate, and it drives me insane.
I don't know why, because I'm really not normally bothered about little things like that. But I just sort of, and when I'm in a restaurant, I think there was this one time I was in an Italian restaurant with my parents and my brother, and we were sat there, and there was this guy who was, oh my God, I don't even know what he was eating. I just couldn't, because he was like right there. I was like, Dad, I need to swap with you, because like I can't face this guy anymore. It was painful, because I think he was doing that thing that like a lot of Americans do, where they cut like that, and then they put the knife down, and then they take their fork, and then they eat like that. And I'm like, just eat with the left hand. And I think it was really irking me, because it just looked, I think it's because it just looks harder than just eating normally. And I was like, I can't do it. So, and do you know what? I love the fact that I think everybody should be happy and do what they want, but I hate the fact that I hate this.
It's when you see them cutting on an angle like this, and the knife's hitting the plate, and they've cut through the food, but it's still going, and you're getting on the plate, and you're like, oh my fucking God.
It's when people hold cutlery like this. And they go like this, and I'm like, hold it like this, and press with your fingers. That's where you get the pressure from. And they're like, oh, for fuck's sake, just can't. Like, people make more work for themselves. I don't understand. I think that's what annoys me. I just want to go over and help them. Like, just if you do this, it's easier. You know, weirdly, the if people are like left-handed, that doesn't bother me. Like, that doesn't bother me. It's just the correct use of cutlery. There we go.
Yeah, you don't want to watch me trying to use chopsticks then.
Oh, see, I'm not.
My
I
God.
can use because there are various different ways of using chopsticks. Which I only found out recently. I just have my own way, which is just sort of like it kind of works, and it's you should see my fingers.
Just about
like,
picking up.
And it works. It works though. And people go,
yeah.
"How do you do that?" I'm like, I don't know. Ever since a child, this is just what I've done, and it works. So, but then I suppose people say that about cutlery, so I'll probably call
So my
myself out
logic on it is that you have one chopstick which you have with your middle finger and your thumb,
So
and then
you
you have
have,
your
like-
other one to like guide it.
Yeah. So I go like.
Yeah,
I can't even do that. I can't even get to
You
that
go-
point.
Yeah. So I'm not bad at it, but sometimes like it gets quite like hard to do after a while, especially if you're eating rice and you're like.
It just seems a bit tedious. Just fucking
Get a spoon.
spoon. You
Yeah.
can't do that
Nah, I
anymore. No,
can't.
get a spoon.
I went to this. There's like a really nice Japanese restaurant that's just sort of open near me. It's like a proper authentic like Japanese restaurant, and they do not have cutlery. Like they literally only have chopsticks. And I went for my birthday, and I was fine. All my parents were fine, and my brother just sat there like, and he was just like, and I was like, and then by the end of it, he was just stabbing his sushi.
Yeah.
Like that voucher advert.
Still eating it half an hour later, like
Yeah, it was
full
funny, and I
plate.
think he was just picking it up like that. So funny, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like to always respect the customs of like, you know, a certain food or the way they eat and stuff like that. Because
Yeah,
actually,
100%.
weirdly, I went to someone's house once who they were Indian, and they cooked like a really authentic Indian food, and we ate with our hands, like how you would traditionally. So you'd obviously you sort of like use a chapati to like kind of scoop it all up, like a piece of cutlery, but you just eat the cutlery, and I think it's genius, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
washing
put all the
up.
rice in your hand. It does save washing. All you have to do is wash your hands. Done.
Yeah, I do like it, like visiting different countries and trying out different food and just seeing how they approach food as well. Like, so some countries like to take the shoes off, and like in like Japan and China, they sit down low on the floor with the food. And then some of them have the respect of having the food. So like I said, that's why they take the shoes off. And whereas we just fucking rock up in like dirty boots to a McDonald's and just stop.
Yeah.
Stop there.
No, our food culture is basically eat to have energy and then carry on with our day. Whereas like a lot of, even like in Europe, when you go to Italy, they have like a 2-hour lunch break where they go and like eat pasta and pizza and have a glass of wine. Like that's normal, because like for them, like eating is like a big either family or social occasion. Like it's a genuine part of the day. Like sometimes they don't eat till like 9 o'clock and they eat quite late, and it's like a really big evening event. Whereas for us, it's like we've kind of, us in America even worse than us in some regard. You know, it's kind of this weird thing where like we eat to just survive rather than it being a social thing, because throughout humanity we have always, so food has always been a social thing for everybody. And I think that as a culture, you know, British, what we have of British culture, which most of it I hate, we don't have that. We don't, you know, it's just we eat to survive and then we carry on with our day. That's it.
Could
And
you
I just think
imagine
it's so
if we
missing.
did it where we took like a fucking 2-hour break in work to have like a wine and like to speak to people and eat?
But I think people would be better for it. Like, but the thing is that, you know, there is the argument of like, people always say, well, you know, like a lot of the reason why our business stuff is so good and this and this is because we don't have 2-hour lunch breaks, and people are way more sort of, you know, fast paced, and that's just our world. You know, when you go into London in the tube, everyone's in a rush, no matter where they're going, everyone's in a rush. Everybody's got somewhere to be. It's not like that in some places, but it's just sort of how it is here, and it's horrible. Basically.
Yeah, but it's also like it's like how people feel as well in life, and like the whole family being together and having that sort of social aspect. I remember watching one of the Anthony Bourdain episodes in Spain, And he goes there and he's like, I can't believe it. Like they do the whole thing with a glass of wine, and they all sit down and they're all having the different foods that they all share together, and they sit there and talk about the day. And this is during, I think they have a siesta, not a fiesta, a fiesta.
They get the fiesta out.
Yeah, they get the fiesta, right? A siesta during the day, and like that sort of like structure to the day, and just obviously seeing your family
it's really
eating
healthy.
food with your family. Yeah, it is 100%
mentally healthy for you. Like, a lot of families don't talk to each other, and I know everybody's different, and some people like that. But I think it should be healthy for people to chat to either their friends or family in a proper environment where you're not got work, you've not got your phones on, you're just purely just talking. But like you said about your day, sometimes that's all you need, is just to sort of vent about how shit your day's been.
100%. Oh,
I could verbally comment about this whole like overworking is glorified and etc. But I've just realised the time, so I'm not. So I'll save it.
1 minute over. That's pretty good. That's fine.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming on, Charlie. We appreciate it.
That's all right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Sorry, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Thank you for having me. It's been a very nice time.
So that was episode 60 with Charlie from As Everything Unfolds. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a smashing episode.
So good. Massive thank you to Ryan, good old Ryan from our podcast, for getting this chat sorted. As you probably gathered from it, Ryan was part of the team for As Everything Unfolds on the Holding Absence tour. So it made sense for us to organise this and have a good old chatteroo.
Well, I can't believe you used that word.
Chatteroo.
A chatteroo. You
I'm
come up
rolling
with
with
some
it,
like phases, yeah.
If you haven't already seen Silver Screen Unseen as well, make sure you go and check out that. There are some good films that they've discussed. Parasite being one, Nightcrawler. Woo, Nightcrawler. So yeah, go and check out on the Spotify page to go and check out them episodes as well. I said check so many times. Check it, check.
Because Charlie does feature on one of those episodes as well.
Correct.
If you've enjoyed this and you want more Charlie to listen to, then head over to Silver Screen Unseen, and don't forget to just give us a like on the socials if you can. There's a follow on Instagram. We use Instagram, Twitter the most, Facebook if you use Facebook still. And it's going over to our YouTube channel as well. So if you're listening on the audio side of things now, then you're also missing out of all the content on our YouTube. So head over to there and give us a like, give us a comment, let us know what you think. But thanks for watching anyway, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.